Welcome to Parrot's Literary Corner on Parrot TV. My name is Mutiu Olawuyi, and on the show, as usual, I have my partner with me, my co-host, Dustin Pickering. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
On the other part, we have our new guest here, and that's Dan Wright. It's going to be the one we're going to be exploring his work and his literary world. From him, we will learn a lot today. So I want us to listen carefully, take our time to gather ideas from this very unique writer. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Over to you, Dustin, please.
Well, it's nice to be interviewing you, Dan. I was doing some reading on your or some looking at your YouTube interviews and videos, whatnot, available on online, and I noticed one of the first ones available. There's one where you speak of you write because there's too many voices in your head, and I thought that was an interesting metaphor. But I noticed that in the writing itself, in your poetry itself, there's a unified narrator. There's like just one single voice. So is there a contrast there, or what exactly do you mean by the voices in your head and how that translates into your writing?
Well, I believe the quote I said was that there's just too many voices in my head, and I write because it beats kicking the TV in.
Right.
The whole thing of it is that I think there's so many things that I would love to do at any given moment, and so many opinions that I have. My mind is almost like a tornado, just like going at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. So writing is a good way to just sort of filter that, and a lot of times it's good. Most times it needs work. But it's sort of something that I've been always able to just sort of filter things through, because I started out writing scripts and then got into a couple of bands. I was a musician and a songwriter for a while, and that actually helped when I decided to pursue poetry, because I always preferred the words as opposed to coming up with melodies anyway. So
It's very interesting. It's thinking of like thinking when I heard you say that, I was thinking like in terms of like maybe like society's demands on people, or sort of the tyranny of expectations, or maybe like some sort of because there's a lot of your poetry you talk about get off my back kind of thing, and so forth. Yeah. That's sort of a theme in some of your work. So I just thought that was maybe part of the the thought process you were going through in that.
Well, yeah, there is always a kind of the soundtrack to the daily grind, as it were. And one thing that I think unifies all artists of all forms is that we have that ability to just sort of take a step back and just sort of see the ridiculousness of it, and from that we pull wherever our mind chooses to go, and like decipher it in a way that sort of makes sense to us.
Right. So for our viewers out there, I was wondering if you could read us a poem. I had one in mind called Roads Point the Way, from your book, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about the poem and kind of introduce us to your upcoming work.
I'm sorry, before you even present, I would love to, one of our viewers just commented asking that they want to know who our guest is. Would you mind just briefly introduce yourself before you make the presentation?
Sure, no problem. My name is Daniel W. Wright. I'm a poet based in St. Louis. I have been writing pretty much all my life, and I've been professionally getting published for the better part of a decade now. Started in a bunch of like underground punk magazines about 10-ish years ago, and from there I started writing for a music magazine based out in St. Louis called 11. And we're a couple bands in the St. Louis area, and from there I started writing poetry. I put out my first chapbook, Working Bohemians, Blues and Other Poems, in 2014. And from there I proceeded to release 4 more chapbooks in 2017 and 2018. In 2019, I released my first professional collection, Rodeo of the Soul, out on Spartan Press. And with that, I was able to go on my first, sort of like coast to coast book tour. And that's where a lot of the poems from my current collection, which is my 3rd professional collection, Love Letters from the Underground, came from.
Thank you. So we can go to the aspect of representation now.
Okay, yeah.
Let's point the way.
This is from my latest collection, and as Dustin pointed out, it is called Roads Point the Way. The road isn't for everyone. Some may love the idea of the road, the romance of the road, but few can take it for longer than a few days at a time. But then there are the ones who live for the adventure the road offers, who ready themselves for the pitfalls and the promises. The pretenders will always disappear or stay in their bubbles. And I say, you do you. But don't write a check your ass can't cash. And never open your mouth until you know what the shot is.
Excellent, excellent. So in St. Louis, where you're located, what sort of venues are there and available for people to come and read, and what sort of crowds do you find come to the readings?
Well, I work at a bookstore, Dunaway Books, out in St. Louis, and we provide, before the pandemic hit, we were, doing a bi-monthly series called An Evening of Wine and Poetry, where we just get a couple bottles and get 4 or 5 poets to just read their stuff, and everyone would just have a great time. There used to be a couple of really great places, and unfortunately now not so much. But one thing that would happen would be like whenever there would be big shows for musicians or bands, they would get a couple poets to just perform in between the band setting up, and that sort of attracts I guess like the more rock and roll crowd as opposed to the more literary based crowd. But I prefer that with the type of writing that I tend to do. So
okay, so I noticed in another interview that I was looking through on YouTube, you say, and I think this was from maybe a few years back, you say that the time is right for art in St. Louis, and do you think that's still true post-pandemic, and does that still ring true to you that the time is right for art?
Well, the time is always right for art, but
Right.
in St. Louis, well, I think all over the world, every city has their own little art scene, and I think there's going to be a paradigm shift that is going to catch some people off guard, because it's almost sort of like you just go to, like, when we do get back to normal, which I hope is sooner rather than later, it's almost going to be like going to sleep one day and then you wake up 2 or 3 years later and you're 2 or 3 years older. So I think a lot of scenes are going to have to get used to the fact that there's going to be a lot of new people coming up from behind, and the people who've already made their reputations in that scene, they need to kind of keep up, because when pandemic hit, I was 35. I'm going to be turning 37 in a couple of months, and you may not even be back to normal until fully back to normal until next year at the absolute latest. So that's sort of like losing 2.5 years there, being a conservative estimate. So I think a lot of scenes and a lot of cities are going to see familiar but different And for bigger cities, it's not going to be that big of a thing because new people are always coming in. But for smaller cities, it's going to be interesting. But the people who are meant to keep on doing it, like they can weather any challenge.
So resilience.
Mhm.
Are you influenced by writers such as Bukowski at all? I've seen that tone quite a bit in your writing,
Yeah.
this sort of working class Bukowski sort of vibe.
Yes, but not in the way that a lot of people like to say that they're influenced by Bukowski. That actually, do you mind if I read another poem from that collection? Because there's one that
Sure.
actually kind of this poem better states it than anything I could kind of put
Go
together.
right ahead.
It's a piece that I actually wrote for my birthday.
And what book are you reading from? And just so for people viewing, what are we
this
looking
is
at here?
my newest collection of poetry called Love Letters from the Underground. It will be released a week from tomorrow on the 20th. And we'll be doing a Zoom reading for it to promote it with a couple of really great poets, Kim Vodka from Memphis, Gabriel Ricard from Gabriel Ricard from Long Island, Kevin Ridgway from Los Angeles, and a really great fellow St. Louis poet named Zaire Amani.
Sounds exciting.
And it's gonna be my first big sort of poetry reading since the pandemic hit. I'm really looking forward to it. But this piece is entitled No Bluebirds. Something tells me you would have hated your 100th birthday. No bars, no poems being lived. Only idiots and pretentious pricks like me thinking your thoughts for you, an idol I never met. I know I wouldn't want to get a drink with you if you were still alive, because there'd be too many others lined up to do so, including some who would feel entitled to that bragging right. I'm cautious to say your name out loud because saying it always attracts every asshole who never bothered to create, but who loves to think they could create, who waste the next 10 minutes of anyone's life talking about a novel they'll never write, a film they'll never make, who think the only way to live up to your reputation is to drink and sleep with women as much as possible. They never get it right because they never talk about the bluebird in their heart or about the beauty of another's fire.
Wow. So in there you talk about pretentious artists, or how would you say you could recognize a pretentious artist?
Just by how they present themselves, and it's not even necessarily a pretentious artist, it's a pretentious person. There's always going to be someone who just loves to act like their shit don't stink and that they're above everybody, and at the end of the day those people are usually washed by the wayside. So
right. Yeah, sounds like a plan there. So you're also written for the book Sacred Decay. How did you get involved with that, and tell us a little bit about that?
Sacred Decay, the art of Lauren Marks, which will be coming out May 4th from Dark Horse. I've been a friend of Lauren Marks and a fan of hers for years, and we both knew each other when we were coming up. There was a really great bar in St. Louis that was called the Livery Company, and that was like a place where musicians, poets, artists. It was sort of like a modern day CBGB. It was probably the closest I'll ever feel to being in Paris in the 1920s. There was just always just this conglomeration of people just always coming together. And Lauren was one of those people. We became good friends. And when she got that offer, they said that she could pick whoever she wanted to do that. And she's always been a fan of my work, so she gave me the opportunity, and I was you could have knocked me over with a feather when I got that offer.
Absolutely. You just take it up, you know, you take up
Mhm.
the banner there.
Yeah.
So you're also into sort of critiquing music, or, you know, writing about music. As you said in one interview, you take up your passions. So
Mhm.
what are some of your favorite groups, and do they influence your poetry at all?
Very much so. Some of my favorite bands right now are, unfortunately, I guess you would call them sort of like underground rock.
Hmm.
Bands like the Schizophonics from San Diego, a couple of local St. Louis bands, the Manis Brothers and Brotherly and the Leather Jackals, um, Thelma and the Sleaze from Nashville, uh, the Nude Party. I forget where they come from. I feel really bad about it, but you know, a lot of, like, I guess you would call them sort of garage rock.
Hmm.
And you know, a lot of people want to say that, you know, rock has sort of gone away. It hasn't gone out of the way. It's just, you know, music labels really don't go out to clubs like they used to. You know, there's still great music out there, but when a form of entertainment basically becomes like how the studio system, or the music, or the movie studios were back there during the days of the studio system, where it's all sort of in-house, it does create, you know, a product not necessarily as organic. But
Hmm.
you know, to answer the second part of your question, I'm very influenced by that, because to me it's real. Like, you know, I'm always like, I usually write when I'm listening to music, because it'll just get the motor going and I'll spin off into whatever direction. Whenever, you know, I have written a novel, for example, I'll just listen to like a Miles Davis record
Hmm.
or a John Coltrane record, and just, you know, play it just on a loop, because, you know, something about, you know, bop jazz just gets me going, and, you know, flies me off into directions that I didn't know my mind could go to. So, you know, I'm very influenced by, you know, music whenever it is I write.
And so, how did you get involved with the magazine 11? And can you tell us a little bit about the magazine itself?
Yeah. It had been 11 magazine existed from 2006 to 2016, and the editor of the magazine, while I worked there, was a gentleman named Evan Salt, who most people would probably recognize as the drummer from the band Harvey Danger, and he's currently a drummer in a great a band that actually started in St. Louis, but they recently moved up to New York, called Sleepy Kitty.
Hmm.
And you know, I had known Evan just around town, and I went up to him one day after a gig and told him about this band that I checked out. I'm actually wearing their shirt, you know, the X Bombers, which were a really cool two-piece outfit um, from Charleston, Illinois. And you know, I told him, like, dude, you know, this band's really great. You know, I got their record. You know, I could give it to one of your writers. You know, and without blinking an eye, he said, well, Dan, you're a writer, right? You write it. You know, just give me 350 words by such and such a date, and you know, we'll print it. And it was as simple as that. And that started me writing for them for about 3 years, up until the magazine closed down.
Hmm. Why did it close down? Was it just sort of, you know, boredom, or was there financial reasons?
It was financial. The guy who ran it really didn't want to run it anymore, so Evan bought it from him, and it reached a point to where it wasn't fiscally responsible to Evan and his partner to keep running it. But and you know, and also there was just, they didn't know if the love was there for it to keep going, and you don't really realize what the bottom line is until you see, like, you have to get, you know, money from, you know, people paying for advertising and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And the last 2 or 3 issues, they ran themselves into debt a little bit, you know, to print it out. It was a literal labor of love, and they were running it out of their shirt and coat pockets, and it reached a point to where just they had to respect themselves enough to sort of walk away. Otherwise, you know, it would have just been, you know, digging them further. And
So how do you
Right. Yeah,
manage
that
to
happens a
combine
lot.
performance and writing? How do you manage to
Hmm.
combine the two?
say that again.
How do you manage to combine performance and writing?
Uh, it's something that I don't really think about truly. Like, I've been a performer in one way or another since I was like 15 years old, be it school plays or um, being an actor, being a musician, stand-up comedy for a brief point, or being a poet. So for myself, it's just when I perform, it's just that light goes on, and it's something I don't ever really think about. It just is there.
I remember in one of your performances that I watched, you mentioned having a theater background. I thought that was interesting because you did have a pretty quality to your, if anybody wants to check out the YouTube station, there's definitely a presentation style. It's not, you don't just get up and read the work. You actually kind of gesture and act it out, and you use your voice and inflect and so forth. And I think that's something that a lot of poets don't actually, go into it like that.
No, it's, well, for my standpoint, I feel like if you're on stage and people paid money to be there, you have to entertain them. Like, it's something that Freddie Mercury said one time, that, if people want to listen to the record, they go home, listen to the record. You don't just reproduce what's there. You give them something that is sort of sacred, something that they can say, I was there, I saw that. And if you can perform for 3 people, you can perform for 3,000 people. When you go on that stage, you got to give people an extra something. Don't just there's some people who like the way certain people perform, but for myself, I have to give them something more. I cannot just sit there and read poems monotone, because that'd be too boring for me. And I'm not saying that as a critique of anybody else. That's just for myself. But I feel like a certain obligation to give people a little more whenever it is my name is on that bill.
Right. Do you think it's easier to perform for smaller or larger audiences in general?
It's harder to deal with, to perform for quiet crowds.
Oh, okay.
I'm like I love people to make a little noise. I mean, by all means, you sort of quiet down when the performer's performing so you can hear what they're saying, certainly. But crowd size, if they want to see me, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's 3 or 3,000. As long as they want to be there, I'm for performing for whoever.
Right. I was going to ask you to read another poem, "Dance with the Devil," from your book.
Oh, well, there's a little story that goes with that.
Oh, feel free to tell
I
us.
actually wanted to ask that question. The devil there.
Yeah, so this came from my first time going out to San Francisco. And it almost plays out like literally how the poem is. But I'll just go ahead and read the poem, and I'll finish the story afterwards. She was dressed in red, with black fishnet coverings covering her red t-shirt that said "Hairy Pussies Matter." Her hair was done up in 2 ponytails made to look like devil horns. She had taken lipstick and made herself look like she had evil eyebrows and a Cheshire smile. "You paid $200 to be with the devil?" she asked. "No, thanks," I said. "I'm fine." So
I like it's narrative and it's simple, very funny. I want to know the story behind that.
So I had a day to kill before I flew back to St. Louis, and I don't drive, and I kind of prefer that. I love just taking my time walking in the city, because to me that's how you get the feel of the city. And I was walking my way towards the Golden Gate Bridge because I wanted to see that before I left. I forget the street I was on, but I'm just walking up. I see this woman looking exactly like how she's described in the poem. And it's like, well, hey, if she's happy, whatever. And then she says, you pay $200 to be with the devil, and it's go, I'm good.
It's a true story.
Yeah. Well, there's another one in that book, also from the same trip, of me going of the Grateful Dead bear.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but like the first time I was in San Francisco, people would just come up to me because I guess I just generally like look like I have a scowl on my face, and just ask me, dude, do you need to smoke? Do you need pot? Do you need to smoke? I was like, no, I'm good. And it was just the weirdest thing. Like people were asking me like, instead of like, do you need money? It's like, do you need to calm down and smoke marijuana? I was like, yeah, I'm all right. But I went down to Haight-Ashbury. This dude in Grateful Dead bear outfit takes off the head of the costume and says, man, Jerry Garcia can kiss my ass. And coming, and he was like wiping the sweat off his forehead and sees me coming. He's like, dude, do you need to smoke? I was like, fuck, it's the fifth person to say this today. All right, fine, I'll smoke. And it had to have been that medical grade stuff because it was potent.
Wow. So we have just a few minutes left, and I wondered, in today's age, especially in COVID, what are some creative ways to promote poetry, specifically in poetry collections that you find, and both in the past, before COVID, and now?
That is a very good question. Whenever it comes to the promotional end of things, I almost think of like that scene in the Blues Brothers where they've just got the bullhorn on the car and are just like calling out to people. It's like, you on the bike, come see the Blues Brothers Blue Show review. But the thing that I've been trying to do is, because one thing that helps is knowing how and I had to learn this the hard way, how algorithms work on social media websites. And I had to talk to a couple friends of mine who promote shows to realize that the better way to do it is not to create an event, but to post stuff on your regular page. And if you have like an author page or whatever, to promote through that, because more people are tuned into that, so they'll see that more so than they'll see an event that YouTube or Facebook wants you to pay $5-10 to promote more. It's all about really getting creative and not letting yourself get lazy, because there are times where I'll just think like, oh God, I just said something about it 2 days ago. I don't want people to get annoyed with me, but you do have to keep doing that. So it's this weird thing of not getting lazy, and also using your main websites, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, to just put stuff out, because more people will see that stuff. And also, just when you're promoting something, don't oversell it. Just keep it simple. A great piece of advice that someone gave me once is, undersell and over deliver.
Quite a mantra there. So, would you like to say anything to poets maybe considering jumping into the field, getting involved in the poetry communities at large, in their own communities?
Couple things. One is some lyrics from one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Guy Clark, which is ain't no money in poetry, that's what sets the poet free, and I've had all the freedom I can stand. And the other, which is just myself, is if you want to do it, do it. Just sit down at the typewriter or the laptop or whatever and just write. A lot of times when I write poetry, I will write it on like the notepad on my phone and just email it to myself so it's never lost. It's worth it if it's your passion. But don't go into it thinking that you'll make $1 million, because there's New York Times bestsellers artists who still have, a day job, because, getting grandfathered in on those good old 20th century deals are kind of a thing of the past, unfortunately. But yeah, if it is your passion, don't let anything deter you from it, because you will get so much reward from it.
I think we may have a little time to maybe do one short poem that you'd like to choose to read.
All right. Well, I'll read this one from my book that I put out last year, just because I end a lot of my sets with it.
Okay.
And it's called Quick Thought number 4,097. I'll just go ahead and say it. White people scare me when Sweet Caroline comes on.
Well, this has been an excellent
very
interview.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we look forward to seeing your book come out, and our viewers at home watching live, just go ahead and tell us what your book is just a little bit again, just so we can prepare for it.
Well, my book is Love Letters from the Underground, out by Spartan Press, and you should be able to find it on all Amazons and BarnesandNoble.coms and all that good stuff. Or you can go on to my website, DanielWright.com, with dashes between the W's, and you can order it there. I'll be doing the live Zoom reading on the 20th of this month. And I hope that you all can pick it up. All three of my books, my professional collections, are available on social media, on Amazon. So you feel free to pick up a copy.
Thank you so much, Dan. We really enjoy our session with you. A lot of people must have gathered ideas on how to cope with everything that has to do with the literary world. Beyond just writing, something can become part of you when you do it consistently. And if you are consistent in something, you will not have problem doing that anytime again. That's one lesson I learned from him with regards to his performance. Performance has become part of his blood now. He's no longer really challenged with that. So keep doing what you love doing. Enjoy your way and your style, and you will definitely live peacefully. So you don't allow the society to direct you. Direct yourself following your mind. Thank you so much, Dan, once again. Thank you, Dustin. Our viewers, we appreciate your time. This is where we're going to end the show. We meet tomorrow with another very unique guest, just like Dan Wright, and we still explore other literary world. Thank you so much. See you. Bye.